All right, so I got this clip from First Things First Up. They're looking at the MVP votes from ESPN. ESPN did a poll who would be MVP so far this season. The guys, Nick Wright and them, are going to go over what they think about the poll, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts as well. Let's get into it.
It's NBA straw poll time. Who's the MVP? The list from ESPN goes like this: Tatum at 1, Giannis at 2, who I'm disqualifying because he just lost by 41 points. You can't be MVP and lose by 41 points. Luka at 3.
I know that sounds crazy, but because we're early in the season, we're about a quarter way through the season, I kind of feel that way about certain guys with certain games too. Like, for me, it's hard to really think about Steph Curry when the Warriors have struggled so much on the road. Now, we know the Warriors are now missing Steph for at least the next month, it looks like, with the injury, with the shoulder injury he suffered versus the Pacers. But the Warriors struggling to win a road game, it's kind of hard to think about Steph Curry, even though he's had an amazing season. It's also hard for me to think about Jason Tatum. As amazing as the Boston Celtics have been, I've done videos on the Boston Celtics. You guys know I bet the Boston Celtics to get to the NBA Finals last year. I was taking them in almost every game in almost every series. But Jason Tatum versus the Warriors was very lackluster. It feels like he just has, like a mental lapse when he's playing against the Warriors. They just have a stranglehold on him. And he also struggled against the Clippers, who have two wings that match up very well against him. Two guys that are very similar to Jason Tatum. I remember Greg Popovich saying that Jason Tatum could be the offensive version of a Kawhi Leonard, a Kawhi Leonard who's more offensive minded, while Kawhi Leonard's a little bit more defensive minded. And that comparison always made sense to me because offense came natural to Jason Tatum, and he had to work to become a good defender, while Kawhi Leonard defense and rebounding came natural to him, and he's worked to be a good offensive guy. So I always like that comparison by Popovich. I just think that Jason Tatum struggling in those two games, it's hard for me to really get that out of my head. And as amazing as he's been this regular season, it's hard for me to not think of him a little bit as a fraud after seeing him in the NBA Finals last year. I'm starting to think that maybe he's just not that guy. But we'll see. This postseason, he's going to have a great chance to showcase to the world whether he is or not. It's starting to look like when it matters most, though, Jaylen Brown's the one who steps up and takes over that role for the team. But it's just something interesting to pay attention to. They got Luka third. Luka and the Mavs, they just aren't winning enough games. Just like I said with Steph on the road, Luka and the Mavs aren't winning enough games. There is voter fatigue with Nikola Jokic and with Giannis. I've noticed voter fatigue in both sports. In the NFL, they didn't want to give the MVP to Patrick Mahomes, but now with Jalen Hurts getting out, it seems that they're going to end up giving it to Mahomes. And you got Giannis here sitting at second with ESPN's voting. You could make a case that, hey, just give the award to Patrick Mahomes and just give it to Giannis. Don't make it too complicated. But since they want to have voters fatigue and make it a little complicated, I think that it's going to end up going to Tatum if they consider just having a great, if they continue to just keep having a great year. If not, Luka will probably get this if they end up winning enough games, or maybe even Ja or Booker, which nobody is talking about, and I'm surprised to not see either of those guys on this list.
Curry at 4, no longer playing. He's out too.
Yeah.
And finally, Joker, who literally just won the MVP yesterday, or 2 days ago, is coming in at 5.
What about Embiid also? Embiid, he's putting up real good numbers, like 33 points, 10 rebounds, about 5 assists. He's shooting over 50% from the field. We know a lot of those shots are inside the arc, but Embiid also does take jumpers as well. Over 80% from the line, which is really good for a big man. Embiid's having a good year, and they've been trying to give it to Embiid for a while now. I'm surprised that he's not in the top 5 of ESPN's voting, but maybe it's because he hasn't played enough games this season. I wonder what it is. Maybe because the Sixers haven't dominated as much as people thought, but I would suspect that Embiid crawls up the ladder as the season goes on, especially with Steph being out now.
You clearly are not impressed with the list.
No,
You took shots at like every guy.
I'm just Giannis lost by 41 points last night.
What? Look.
Well, so then let's not play the games. Let's just
Look,
you
well,
and Kawhi
then
Leonard.
how many
see
games
in the
are there?
playoffs.
How many games are there?
Don't lose by 41.
How many games are there?
You got the Grizzlies doing the win.
There's 82 games.
You shouldn't lose any of them by 41 points.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Brewer, remember the 72-win Bulls lost the game by 46 to the Jazz at the end of that season.
The Jazz.
Yeah, one game isn't a big deal, but when you've only played like 20 or 30 games so far this season, it does make one really bad game stand out a lot. So I understand both sides with that point. Like I said, it's hard for me to get the Tatum game against the Warriors out of my head. It's also hard for me to get the Tatum game against the Clippers out of my head. Losing back-to-back games like that on the West Coast, they just didn't bounce back or respond. They didn't stand up. He just didn't stand up to the task at hand. So it is hard for me to get that out of my head. So I do feel Wilds, but it's a long season. We'll see how these guys play as the season progresses.
The Jazz, what? We're good, like the Grizzlies are.
They were good.
Right. Okay.
That was a funny game.
I get it, Wilds, because it does leave a bad taste in your mouth. You're like, yeah, they got me by 41.
LeBron lost in overtime, and we tore him apart.
Right. I hear you, but when I really dig into it, Nick, when I really dig into it, and that obviously I'm a voter.
No, not obviously. Unfortunately, you are a voter, dude. Chris Broussard be having some of the worst takes, and Chris Broussard is one of those guys who's like notoriously known for lying about his sources on TV. He acts like he knows, oh, this guy's going there, this guy's going there. He's always wrong when he makes those assumptions, especially with Kawhi Leonard. But when he thought Kawhi Leonard was going to the Lakers and he was trying to act like it was a done deal. But Chris Broussard, he just be getting on TV making stuff up.
I like Tatum. I'm sorry. I wasn't even trying to stick in your craw. I love Tatum. I would like to see him get his first MVP.
Oh, I think we're going to agree.
24. Yeah, when you really dig in, it's Giannis.
Thank you.
It is.
6 hours ago, you thought it was Tatum, and then you dug into it, correct?
Here's the thing. With Giannis, we know his numbers are better. Right? His numbers are better.
More points, more rebounds, more assists.
Of course, right.
And he's the best defender in the league.
Right. However...
Well, Giannis might be the most valuable defender in the league. He's up there with Draymond. Giannis might be more valuable at this point in his career because he's more athletic than a Draymond Green is. But I wouldn't necessarily say Giannis is the best defender in the NBA. When you talk about best defender in the NBA, you got to put it in categories because there's the guy who's the best at defending perimeter players. You might say Drew Holiday as far as putting him on a point guard or a shooting guard. Then you might have the best wing defenders. I wouldn't really want to put a Giannis on a Kevin Durant. I wouldn't really want to put a Giannis on Jason Tatum. I don't think he's fast enough laterally to keep up with those guys, and he shouldn't be. He's much bigger than those guys. The way that Giannis is built, Giannis is best as a help defender. He's best as a rim protector, a help defender, a guy who can hedge on the screens, a guy who can switch for maybe a play or two. But when you talk about Giannis being the best defender overall, I could bring up a name like Bam Adebayo, who I saw Bam Adebayo guard Trae Young out on the perimeter for an entire series last season. I don't think Giannis would do anything like that. I also see Bam Adebayo guard centers every single night when I see Giannis leaving that up to Brook Lopez. So I can't say Giannis is the best defender in the NBA, but if you wanted to say he's the most valuable defender in the NBA because of his impact and his size, I wouldn't go against that. But like I said, I'd also bring up names as far as value like a Draymond Green who's a Swiss Army knife.
He has been without his second best player for all but 7 games, and since Middleton's been back, he's not playing well. 11 points, 32% shooting, and they're a game and a half behind Boston, which has... I know it might be AD and LeBron is the best duo, but certainly the best two-way duo in the league is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Jalen's averaging 27, 7, and 4.
Jalen's playing awesome.
Jalen's playing great.
Right.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown, as usual, has been bailing Jason Tatum out when Jason Tatum is struggling the most. And that's one thing about Boston that makes them so dangerous is as good as Jason Tatum is, and they have Jason Tatum ranked number 1 in these MVP polls. When he does go south, Jaylen Brown just emerges and ends up playing even better than you expected Jason Tatum to. Like, you're like, oh, Jason Tatum's going to have a big game today. He starts playing bad, then boom. Oh, Jaylen Brown's having the performance I thought Tatum was going to have today. I mean, how many times does that happen when you watch Boston games? It's a really weird thing where you have a guy who's like the MVP frontrunner, but then his teammate is arguably better than him sometimes. Like, when was the last time we said that? Like, when KD and Steph were the best players in the world, they weren't winning MVP awards because they were canceling each other out. Now we have Jason Tatum, who's number 1 in the voting, but there's games where you're like, is he even the best player on his team? And the guy on his team is just like an all-star caliber player. It's like he's like a perennial all-star. He's not really even a guy who you think of as an all-star starter. So it's a really interesting dynamic they have in Boston.
That's why they got the first 2 right, but I'm gonna switch them and go Giannis 1, Tatum 2.
For that, so what can Tatum?
At the moment, I probably would do it too. I probably would switch that and put Giannis 1 and Tatum 2 just because Giannis is the system at the end of the day. Giannis is the one who brings everybody together, and he is the culture that is the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, Coach Bud, he's not really a great coach. It's really Giannis over there doing it all. When you look at the Boston Celtics, what they had with Udoka and what Mazzulla is carrying on, and the pieces that surround Jason Tatum, he definitely has a better overall team than Giannis does. So, yeah, I probably switch Giannis and Tatum on this list. Put Tatum above Luka because Luka just isn't winning enough games right now. So maybe I go Giannis 1, Tatum 2, 3. Maybe I go Luka 3. But I could also make an argument for Booker being up there as like 3 or 4 or something. I mean Booker has balled out this season. He's been good on both sides of the ball. I'm surprised we're not seeing no Booker, no Ja, no Embiid. I'm surprised we're not seeing none of those names.
Tatum do to win the MVP?
More. Just more.
What?
That's
He's
fine.
He's in first place.
Okay, but Wild, can we agree that the difference between 22-8 or 22-7 and 20-8, which is the difference in record, is negligible at the moment?
Sure.
And so in that case, their stats are similar, but Giannis is better in everything. Tatum's a very, very good defender. Giannis is the best in the league.
Sure.
And right now, Tatum has more help. So he needs to either have demonstrably better stats or the team to have a demonstrably better record or something like that. I mean, that's the answer.
That's fair
so
answer.
can I say something? Because I have a pyramid that I think will surprise you guys. So here's would be my MVP pyramid. Giannis at the top, Tatum and Jokic second and third, and then Luka, Steph, and Durant. The reason they can't be higher is because their teams are all right around 500. And then guys kind of lurking, Booker, Embiid, Ja, and Donovan Mitchell would round out the top 10.
I'm not mad at this pyramid at all, actually. I would agree with the top, Giannis, Tatum. I'm not mad at having Jokic third because of the numbers that he's putting up. Denver's actually winning a ton of games, so I agree with that. Putting Jokic third, I can't be mad at that at all. In the next tier, I would take Steph down because the Warriors aren't winning enough games. And I probably would have to insert Devin Booker, who's already beating the Warriors twice. So maybe I swap Booker and Steph, and maybe I put Booker ahead of Luka. And maybe Durant and Luka, I have them right next to each other. And then comes in Embiid and Ja. Yeah, I'd have Embiid and Ja in that conversation as well. Mitchell having a good year too. He's provided Cleveland with something they were missing.
What's wrong, Juan?
Where's Zion?
Zion was first man out, but he's 25 a game. His numbers, Brew doesn't like his rebounding.
But he's been rebounding better.
He's been rebounding
39
better.
and 5.
Zion's a beast, but he's going to have to improve on a few parts of his game. Zion's going to have to rebound the ball better. He's going to have to rebound the ball better. And he's going to have to defend better. He's also going to have to develop a little bit of a floater or a mid-range game that he can rely on because it's going to be tough when the playoffs come around and they pack that floor up a little bit and they throw some bigs in the paint. It's going to be hard for him to finish as much as he currently does. He's still going to get up a lot of them, but it's just going to be tough to do it at as high of a level as he's doing it right now. And as he gets older, he's going to want to have more things in his bag so that way he's not a player that just fizzles out as he ages.
I got to see Zion on that list.
Who are we taking off? Tell me who you're taking
Well,
off.
Embiid's only played 19 games, so that
Steph's
you
out
could,
for a
and
few
you can
weeks.
take
Well,
Booker.
Steph is going to get
I'd
off.
take Booker or Embiid off.
Okay.
Thank you.
But here's and look, you vote for 5, and I get it. Once you get past the first couple, records may not mean as much, right? So you're right. I mean, the 3 on the Luka, Steph, and Durant are having phenomenal seasons. I obviously, but I'm gonna reward winning.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about the MVP award, a lot of it is narrative. Steph Curry being injured now, he's going to be out of this conversation. Luka not winning enough games, he's going to be out of this conversation. Jokic already having won 2 in a row, he's going to be out of this conversation. Durant, because of the turmoil and the drama that was going on in the offseason and early in this season, his coach being fired, he's not going to be in the MVP conversation. So, I mean, when you look at the guys, Donovan Mitchell's balling out. But the media has an axe to grind with Donovan Mitchell. A lot of people hate on Donovan Mitchell. I don't know why. So when you look at who really has a chance to compete for the MVP award, it's between Giannis, Tatum, Booker, Embiid, and Ja. Those are the guys who I realistically think that the NBA could give an MVP award to. They've been trying to give it to Embiid. It looks like it's Tatum's year. Giannis is the man. If Ja and the Grizzlies just keep dominating the West, they're in the mix. Devin Booker is keeping the Suns afloat. Like, those are the guys who I could see an MVP award, being angled or scaled towards them. It's going to be tough for Luka to get one with the Mavs losing games the way that they are, and it's going to be tough for Jokic to get a third one in a row from the league. So some of these guys, just off narrative, aren't necessarily going to have a chance to get one.
Right now. And so my next three, Nick, I'm with you on Jokic because he's being overlooked.
Yes, well, that's what I want to talk about.
Fatigue.
Go ahead.
But I would, at 4, I would go KD. KD's had to overcome the loss of Ben Simmons, the coaching change, which was good, but still a coaching change, and Kyrie with
and
the
at
stuff
5,
that
you have Luka?
Five, I would have Mitchell.
You fire your
Okay,
coach.
listen,
Mitchell is
we don't
playing
have time
great
to get into it.
basketball.
You're going to have to really explain to me how you're rewarding Kevin Durant when you're like, you overcame the coaching change that he asked for and that he instigated, and you're holding what against him? I'm not quite sure.
That they're 500s.
Okay.
I'm holding that against him. And same with Steph. They're 14 and 15.
All right, fair enough. Can I say something
500.
about Nikola Jokic for a moment?
Yeah.
Because the reason I said it was because I thought you said after you get to the top 3, you're not so worried about records.
A lot of people do that. I'm saying
okay.
I want to look at winning right
Last
now.
year, I had 2 major cases against Nikola Jokic. One was team's not good enough to win a league MVP. That aside from Russ, when he won his, and that was a bad vote, it had been 30 years where we only...
No, Russell Westbrook deserved MVP that year. What he did that season was historic. You can try to hate on him all you want. I'm not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan, but I do like what he's done this season as a 6-man for the Lakers, buying into the role, and he did deserve the MVP that year.
gave it to guys who were a top 4 seed. The second one was, I didn't think it was purely siloed to that season, that there had to be some historical context, and should Nikola Jokic really be in the back-to-back MVP club with 11 of the greatest players in the history of the league and Steve Nash? And I said no, I didn't think that. And it was like, all the voters, oh, Nick, that's not how the award works. Well, riddle me this.
What Nikola Jokic does on the offensive end, I don't really think people fully understand. Like, this guy's shooting, I think he's still shooting over 60% from the field for the season. He can shoot the 3 ball. He's a top 5 passer in the NBA at over 7 feet tall. Like, and he's so big, and he's not like the most buff or defined guy, but he's so big that nobody can really hold him. Like, if you watch that international game, I saw some plays where he had Giannis in the post during the game, and he was just way too big for Giannis. And you look at Giannis and you think he's the strongest guy in the league. Like, Jokic was putting him in that box. So Jokic is a beast. Jokic is just different, and what he does on the offensive end is truly better than anybody in the league. The only person who you can compare him to is like Luka does a lot of that stuff on the perimeter, and Steph Curry with the gravity that he draws does a lot of those things as well. But Jokic as a 7-footer who does it, and as a guy who just commands a double team, like, they send a double team right away when Jokic gets the ball, especially when he's close to the basket. And if they don't send a double team, he finds a way to score every time. So they have to, and now you have one of the best passers in the NBA just getting doubled the whole time. And the amount of backdoor cuts and like instant offense that the Nuggets get with him playing point center, it's just ridiculous. Like, he's the most valuable player on the offensive side of the ball. And it's not really close if we're being honest. And what he does on the defensive end, yeah, he's not the best rim protector. He done better as a rim protector and as a rebounder. Of course, you want to get him in the pick and roll action, but you just got to live with it. I mean, we got teams like the Atlanta Hawks. They're living with what Trae Young doesn't do defensively because of what he brings offensively. So you definitely have to live with what Jokic does defensively because of what he's bringing you offensively. I mean, no question about it. I mean, if Jokic was even like a decent pick and roll switch defender, he would be the best player in the NBA by a long shot. Like, by a long shot. That's the only thing holding him back, is that you can kind of you can hunt him in the playoffs. You really can. Steph Curry was doing it last year.
This year, Jokic has a far better case than he did last year. His team's better. He's shooting 62% from the field. His passing's been unbelievable. He's been better.
Yeah, 62% is ridiculous. Like, over 60% from the field, and taking as many shots as he does, like, the degree of difficulty in some of those shots, like constantly seeing double teams being the focus of the other team, like, it's just ridiculous. He's mastered the offensive side of the basketball.
Across every list.
Points and rebounds
are down because he has the team's better, and they're not leaning on him as much, but his efficiency is off the charts. And guess what?
Jokic, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, those are the guys who have mastered the offensive side of basketball. Luka is getting there. Luka is getting real close. I just want to see Luka improve his three-point percentage, and also decision-making at times has to improve a little bit as well. But Luka's right there too. Honestly, he's right there. But Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, those are guys who have mastered the offensive side and who do it at the most highest and efficient level. Kyrie has mastered the offensive side of basketball as well. He just doesn't do it at the most efficient level, and he also can get in his own way at times.
What is he on the straw poll? Fifth. You know why? Because they're like, oh, are we really going to give it to him 3 straight years? They're doing the historical context thing that I said they were doing last year. This year, Nikola Jokic, his season is being underrated because it is leading to winning. The efficiency is historic. He's been great, but nobody.
Nick Wright is funny because the same thing that he used against Nikola Jokic last year is what he's trying to use to make his case for Nikola Jokic this year, and he's getting mad that people are zigging when he's zagging. It's much more ridiculous to give a guy 3 MVPs in a row than it is to give him 2 MVPs in a row. Like now Nick Wright wants to make a case that Jokic should get a 3rd in a row when he didn't even think Jokic should get a second in a row, when Jokic clearly should have got the MVP last year. So Nick Wright is kind of getting in his own way with this argument.
But he admitted that one of the reasons he shouldn't have got it last year is because he didn't deserve to be in the back-to-back MVP club. And yet everyone right now is acting like he can't win it because everyone's saying, well, he can't be in the 3 straight MVP club, which is Will, Russell, and Bird.
Back-to-back club. No problem. And I didn't vote for him last year because I thought it was
better. You would be willing to vote for him
if he deserves it. I mean, really, if he come, I mean, he'd have to be really great.
It sucks that these awards just aren't based off who's the MVP, who's the best player, who's having the best season on a winning team. My metric for MVP at the end of the day is who's the best player in the league, discounting anybody who's playing on a 500 or sub-500 team. As long as your team is winning and you're showing that you impact winning in some way or form, whether that's as a 6 seed, as a 4 seed, as a 2 seed, as long as you're doing that and your team is in the mix, they're in the hunt for contention, and it's because of you for the most part, then you fit into my MVP qualifier. And the top guys in that list have to be the Giannis's, the Jokic's, the Tatum's, even though Tatum, like I said, I can't really get those 2 games out of my head. But we're going to revisit this probably, I'd say, around the All-Star break. We'll revisit this. I'll make a new video, probably go over a segment that one of these guys, one of these shows have done, or I'll make my own video. And we'll just go over these and see who's leading the MVP voting at that time. Because right now it's still early on. If I had to have a vote today, I would say Giannis Antetokounmpo is my MVP. So thanks for watching. Till next time, peace.